Hey, it's me, Missing. I want to share this awesome book with you. It's really good. It's by Robert Burleigh and it's illustrated by Leonard Jenkins, and it's about a poet that I just think his stuff is so good. I learned about him in seminary school, and his name was Langston Hughes. And this is actually taking a poem that he wrote from like 1920 or something like that. Wait, there's an author's note. Okay, so this is called Langston's Train Ride. And the author's note: I love the poetry of Langston Hughes. In Langston's Train Ride, that's this book, I wanted to capture just one thing: the moment when Langston Hughes came to believe in himself as a writer. The details of this moment and the wonderful poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, that he wrote late that afternoon are unique to the life of Langston Hughes. But many people have experienced something similar: the realization that they can achieve their dreams. My hope is that Langston's Train Ride is not only a historic retelling, but also a beacon for other young people with a dream. And so this is based on a poem that was written in 1921 by the poet Langston Hughes, the guy about whom this book is. This book is about Langston Hughes. I don't know how that works without ending the sentence in a preposition. Anyway, and it was the poem called The Negro Speaks of Rivers. And we don't use that term Negro today, but that was the term back then for what we refer to, and people of the African American community refer to themselves, some as African Americans and some as blacks, as we read. Who was that person that we did the other day who said that they preferred to use the term black? I can't remember. But anyway, and that's another one of those reminders. Like, yeah, you always hear the thing, treat other people as you want to be treated. But no, you treat other people as they want to be treated. Because you want to find out, like, what name they would like to be called, what they need, what they want. Not just what, like, I want that I want to give to you. Anyway, sorry for a little sermonette. Okay, but sorry, I can get on my horse, can I? Anyway, this is Langston's Train Ride. And it's about Harlem again. Remember, Harlem keeps coming up in a lot of these stories, from George Gershwin to Ella Fitzgerald, Lena Horne. Sunday afternoon in Harlem and 125th Street is alive, swarming with people, jumping and jiving. I'm home. I love walking these streets, the faces, the men in their sharp Sunday suits, the girls in their dresses the color of bright hard candy, the vendors, voices like a rhythmic beat, a whir vibrating in the air. Everything I see speaks to me, to me. I am on my way to one of the best days of my young life. Look out. Harlem, I'm coming through. My first book of poems out at last. I've got to make it to a party where all my friends are waiting just for me. I skit-scat in a little half dance on the sidewalk. Yes, I am a poet. I know it now, but there was a time when I wasn't so sure, not so sure at all. My heels click faster and faster on the sidewalk. That sound pulls me back to that time not so many years ago. I drift back and back some more. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack, clack, clack. Yes, I am riding the rails, with my head tilted against the seat. I listen to the sleepy click of the train wheels, resting my feet on the steel bar in front. Happily, I gaze out at the soft blur of trees through the dust-flecked window. It's 1920, and here I am, all of 18 years old. High school is behind me, and I'm traveling to Mexico to visit my father, who lives there. My father, who left us to fend for ourselves when I was just a little boy. The train rumbles south and west, bumping and swaying, past green fields dotted with grazing horses, and thin streams that dart suddenly out of the woods. These pictures something. From Ohio into Indiana, little towns with white steeples and lazy stations. Here and there, at the edge of one of these towns, the tar paper shacks or the broken down sheds where my people, the Negro people, live. Start out with nothing sometime, my grandmother liked to say, and see how long it takes to work up to something. Riding along, I remember my grandmother who raised me. I loved her pride. I loved her free spirit. I loved the stories she told me about her first husband who died fighting to end slavery. One time, she showed me his shawl full of bullet holes. I think of many others too, the black men and women in my church who cared for me. My Aunt Reed, who cooked wonderful apple dumplings with butter sauce, and all of the black folks I'd meet while working in an ice cream parlor in Cleveland. They came north with nothing but their brave thunderclap laughter that said, no matter what, I'll keep on going. The train rolls on as the sun starts setting over endless rows of Illinois cornfields, and then, very slowly, we're crossing a long bridge. It's the Mississippi River far below, with a beautiful golden light shimmering on it. The trees on the farthest shore seem ablaze. Something deep inside me stirs. I feel more awake than I've ever been before. Looking down on its wide, dark flow, I think of what this means to my people, this river. Slaves worked here, on boats in nearby fields and alongside the banks, stacking sandbags to hold back floods. Some slaves were sent down the river, too, to be worked to death on the meanest plantations. I even remember that Abe Lincoln once traveled this river on a raft, all the way to New Orleans, where he saw a slave auction and learned to hate slavery. Whoosh! Words and phrases come rushing into my head. The names of other ancient rivers bubble up. African rivers, the Congo, the Nile, the Euphrates. Suddenly, 3 words, just 3, but I know I have to write them down. How? Where? I snatch the envelope with my father's letter in it and turn it over. Who cares where? Just write. On the backside, with a little stubby pencil I always carry, I write the words, I've known rivers. My thoughts roam. Suddenly I feel the history of my people flowing right up to this moment, to me. Yes, I feel I've lived other lives on those muddy riverbanks. Somehow, somewhere, I've heard the dusky waters of all those rivers lapping and singing. It's true, it's true. I've known rivers. I keep the envelope flat on my lap. I'm madly scribbling words down now, rapidly, one after another. Poems are like rainbows, don't you think? They escape if you're not quick. I turn my head to get out one last look at the sun-tinged Mississippi. Going, going, gone. I scrawl the last line. My soul has grown deep like the rivers, and the poem is done. Carefully, I place the envelope inside my coat pocket. Mustn't lose this, no way. I sit there gazing at the reflection of my face in the glass, reciting the poem to myself over and over and over. I lean forward and press my nose against the window. Everything is gathered up in one huge darkness. But as I stare out, I see a few tiny dots of light balanced on the edge of the horizon. Questions keep coming into my head. Am I really a poet? Is it possible? Can I sing my America too, as other great poets have sung theirs? Can I? Then, as I watch the far-off flickering lights, I hear a very tiny voice inside me that answers softly but firmly. Yes, it says. Yes, yes. I settle back in my seat. The wheels hum, the car sways gently on and on. And suddenly I hear the staccato street sounds again. A large crowd of people is waving at me. I arrive in front of the Shipwreck Inn. Langston, someone shouts. Sit down and sign some books. So I do. Still feeling the rhythm of that long ago train ride under my feet. A friend calls out, Langston, read some poems, read some poems. I turn to my river poem. Everyone is still as I read. I remember the glinting sun on the Mississippi and the train wheels turning, and how that poem flowed into my soul like an ancient river of love for my people. Rivers, I think. Maybe we're all part of a big river that flows from way back to here, and from here to who knows where. The Negro speaks of rivers. I've known rivers. I've known rivers as ancient as the world, and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in sunset. I've known rivers, ancient dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. Langston Hughes. And the afterword. Langston Hughes is one of America's great poets. He was born in Joplin, Missouri on February 1st, 1902, but grew up in several places in the Midwest, including Kansas, Illinois, and Cleveland, Ohio, where he graduated from high school in 1920. While in high school, Hughes was both class poet and a star performer in track. Although Langston's father, who lived in Mexico, tried to discourage Langston from becoming a writer, the young man began writing and publishing poetry at an early age. One of his first and most well-known poems, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, appeared in 1921 in the magazine Crisis, edited by the African-American leader W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, I have heard his name pronounced Du Bois, and I've also heard it pronounced Du Bois, so I'm not really sure. But it's D-U capital B-O-I-S. During the 1920s, Hughes spent time in New York City, where he was part of the Black American literacy movement known as the Harlem Renaissance. He published his first volume of poetry, The Weary Blues, in 1926. Many poems in this book are written in blues, jazz, or slang style that was once a feature of his work. That was always one feature of his work. As a newspaper columnist, Hughes created a very popular character named Simple, whose witty and wise pronouncements on American, and especially African American, life appeared in newspapers for 25 years. During his lifetime, Hughes received many fellowships, awards, and honorary degrees. When he died on May 22, 1967, Langston Hughes was recognized as a fighter for justice and a poet whose work would stand the test of time. And I will put more links to his work and information about him on the little post here. And I hope you like this and the pictures. And I love what the author said, because this is the moment when Langston Hughes realized his dream. My hope is that Langston Hughes' train ride is not only historic retelling, but also a beacon for other young people with a dream. And whatever your dream is, I hope you roll with it. It might change over time, it's all good. Y'all have a beautiful loving heart, so kiss that loving heart. Y'all have beautiful brains, so kiss that beautiful brain. And look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. And say, hey, good looking, because you're all good looking, just the way you are. See you later tomorrow.